Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals and 169 targets that every country in the world have signed up to. And that's one of the reasons they're so important, because for once we've got all countries agreeing on a positive agenda. And it's an agenda that should drive development between now and 2030. So that is a very positive agenda. Also, I know as a former politician how important it is to set targets. If you don't set targets in politics, in government, in business, very little happens. So the goals are really a vision, a collective vision, but importantly they're also a set of targets that we're going to work towards and hopefully achieve.
There's 17 sustainable development goals, and they're important because they represent social inclusion, environmental sustainability, economic prosperity, and they represent giving them all priority in development decision making. And not only that, they're underpinned by this idea that everyone deserves good governance and peace and security. And they're important because these 17 Sustainable Development Goals have been signed up by all heads of states around the world, an actual global agreement on 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And it's a significant improvement on predecessor, the Millennium Development Goals, that made a lot of leeway, but the limitation of those goals is that we're just focused on developing economies. What's important here, why the SDGs are so important, is that they're applicable to all nations, no matter their economic development status. And so far, with them only being signed off last year in November in New York, already there's a global narrative. We're seeing businesses and global companies incorporate the goals into their positioning and their thinking. The research communities become alive. So the energy that's being created by these sustainable development goals and the conversations and the contestations is incredibly important for bringing about sustainable development action and attention.
The UN Sustainable Development Goals, 17, are actually critical to begin to provide the framework for measurement. Unless you actually have the goals, there's no measurement. So they actually provide a goal for all of us, a societal goal, if you like, a whole of global societal goal, some of which might be individually relevant to me or not, but globally they're relevant to us as a society. So I think what we can do with those Sustainable Development Goals is take those that are relevant to us as individuals, that are relevant to us as organisations, and even to us as governments, and actually create the measures, collect the data around that. Without that framework, we actually have nothing. And we'll all have different ones, so that means we'll all have different measures. I think they begin to provide the framework for accounting for sustainable development.
Businesses can first align their business planning with the Sustainable Development Goals. And that doesn't mean their CSR planning, that means their whole of business planning, their business model. And to do that, they should look at the 17 goals and map those goals against what the business is doing. And particularly look for two things. One, impact. Where does the business have the biggest impact on the goals? For example, if you're a Telstra, a telecom, you can have a big impact on health, providing e-health, or on education through the digital economy. So you look at where you can have the biggest impact. But then you also need to look at what is your whole value chain and its impact on the goals. So once again, if you're a business, where are you purchasing your products from? Are you purchasing your products from organisations that employ child labour or don't provide adequate opportunity for women, or pollute or contribute to climate change? Look at your whole value chain, and then look at what your customers are doing with the products you've got. So it's not just what the business is doing, it's what the suppliers are doing and what the customers are doing. And then the other big thing I think for businesses to do is look for gaps. We're all good at looking for things that we do well at and saying, oh yes, well we're achieving these goals, but where are we not achieving? And for Australian companies, a big challenge is around climate. So Australia is one of the countries that's contributing substantially to climate change through our high emissions. What are businesses doing to reduce that contribution, that negative contribution? Look for the gaps, and then I think if businesses do that, so they've developed a plan, they've seen how it aligns, they look for the gaps, then look for the opportunities. Because there's going to be business opportunities in the goals. If the whole world's signed up to these, there are going to be people that need services and products that achieve the goals.